If you
All
want
right.
to, if you want to write me a terse chat message about my tardiness, I will be accepting of those.
It's no worries. I think
All
we've
right.
probably all been there, at least at some point in the past few years, as much Zoom as we've probably all been doing. So,
Yes, I'm into that.
all right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andrea Dalton. I work at University Health in the Behavioral Health Division, and I am with Metro Council on the planning team for our webinars and Mental Health KC. Metro Council, if you don't know, is the Metropolitan Council of Community Mental Health Centers. We are a collaborative membership organization representing the public mental health system of community behavioral health centers serving the greater Metro Kansas City area. We provide support to our member organizations as well as education, information, and resources to the public on accessing quality health services. We host the Mental Health KC conference every May, as well as provide free webinars on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. Just as a reminder, the views and opinions presented today are those of our speaker and do not necessarily represent the opinions of Metro Council. At the end of the webinar today, I will put the link and the password to get a certificate of attendance for this webinar. I will do that just like 5 minutes before 1 o'clock. So be sure you stay that long so that you can grab that certificate of attendance. And again, thank you for your patience as we work through technical issues today. But I am very glad that we got Spencer with us. So a big welcome to Spencer, who is a peer support team lead with Beacon Mental Health. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself further, Spencer, and then you can move on with your presentation. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm very, very happy for the opportunity. As you said, I work for Beacon Mental Health up in the Northland. I've been with Beacon for 3 years and some change. When I was hired on here, Beacon was in the process of establishing how they wanted the peer support role to function, and I was brought on collaboratively to get that done. And very grateful for that opportunity because it allowed me to really sink my teeth into the role itself. Gave me the opportunity to network with other people in the community and really understand what the need was for those that we serve. Um, you know, I'm very grateful to be a peer support specialist. Initially starting out, I had planned to kind of do peer support work for a while, but then transition over into a kind of a counselor role for substance use. However, at that time, I ended up, really understanding that for me personally and the passions I have, the peer support role would be something that would, allow me to kind of grow as an individual and professionally. So what I hope to do today is I'm going to provide a portion of my recovery journey, kind of explain what my past looks like with my substance use, and then about how peer support is currently being used in Kansas City, and kind of just, in general, and then kind of try to tie those things together. That way you can understand how my lived experience through, dark and desperate times, how I could use it to not only support those seeking recovery, but also how I could redefine my own past and find purpose in it. You don't get many opportunities to do that in life, and I believe that peer support work is one of those amazing things that really, lets you, dig into a lot of that. It's funny because, coming into peer support, I've been incarcerated. I was incarcerated for 18 months, and that was due to my opiate use. And I will come back to that, of course. But I had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt over that. And come to find out, those experiences that I had, the darkest times in my life, the times that I am had been most regretful of, I was allowed to redefine those, and it's again truly a beautiful thing. So part of my recovery story is this, and I will try to keep it short. I can tend to get a little long-winded with this, so I will try to be mindful. I used IV opiates for 5 years. I used opiates total for 10 years. However, once I started using IV, the nature of my use just completely changed. It became a monster that I really, I can't articulate quite right. My use started out with a knee injury. I was a registered nurse, and I had been playing with my nephew in an Old Navy, and I tore my ACL. Yeah. And the most weakest of stories, I punched a balloon and tore my ACL. So yeah, that's always a fun, tough story to share. So and after doing that, to be frank, I knew some of the doctors that I worked with. I knew them on a personal level, and so I sought care with them. And my first prescription to opiates was 240 10 milligram oxycodone for 1 month supply. Um, you know, at the time of my life, I was caring for my father, who was he was in the end stages of lung cancer. My wife was pregnant with our first little girl, Willow, and I had several other things. I had been promoted to a new position at my job, so I had all these things I was juggling, and had all these things that were emotionally taxing. Well, the opiates found me at the right time, and they don't discriminate. I don't differentiate between substances. I think that each person's journey with the substance is uniquely their own. However, I think opiates are unique in with some people in where they find them, at what point they find them in their life, find that person in their life. Um, I was going from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, either you know caring for others, job wise, all of it. And I began to become a very emotionally taxed, and I was at my wits end. I was at the end of my rope, and um, person very close to me, I won't say who, said, "Well, hey, dude, take one of these, and you'll calm down." I still remember very vividly that moment, because I had had a very bad day, and I didn't have a whole lot of places to turn. I felt at the moment I didn't want to be honest with people that I couldn't handle all of what I was, had on my plate. I had too much pride, but the moment that opiate kicked in, all of that, all of the noise from that, all the negativity from that, it got turned down. And then all of a sudden I felt euphoric, obviously, and I felt capable of handling all those things. I felt like I could be everything for everybody all the time. And it was an almost instantaneous, profound coping mechanism, I'll say. And it didn't take me long to find out that I really liked them. And so coming into that prescription, I knew, kind of what I was doing. To be honest with you, I did ham it up a bit with the docs, and so therefore I got that 240 pill prescription. Um, from there, it was a fairly, typical use. It just, a first bottle lasted a month, second bottle lasted 3 weeks, third bottle lasted 2 weeks. And before I know it, I was calling in and asking for additional pain medication. I was trying to refill my script early. I was, doing all of those things. Well, obviously, the people that work in our healthcare system are by no means unintelligent, and they caught on to what I was doing, and they canceled my script, and I therefore turned to the streets to start acquiring all my opiates. And I sought them out very, very vigorously, I'll say. And, I kept finding situations in which I could find them for extremely cheap, or trade something, whatever. And that was also my introduction to kind of the more, you know, unlawful side of substance use. And, you know, as I said, my wife, she was pregnant. And so I had to really, watch what I was spending and all of those things. And so my use had become, out of control. Even at that point, I was snorting them and sufflating, whatever you want to say, and, I was spending a great deal of money. Well, the IV use came into play like this. Um, I had become a functioning opiate addict at that time, and I worked every day. I had, I put on the mask, I put on, my best face for everybody. And, I was, trying to maintain, but the money became obviously a very big issue with having a family. Um, and so I was always putting in extra hours to try to make up for that, just working myself as much as I could. And eventually I decided one day that, and this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but this was my initial thought process when using IV was that, you know, I thought I could get a better effect and use less money by using those opiates IV. If if that makes any sense to anybody, for some reason in my very chaotic and whatever mind at the time, it made sense. My life hit a crossroads at that point. I went from somebody that was a functioning opiate user to a desolate. I became desolate. I don't know how to explain that. IV use will make you will drain you completely of mind, body, and spirit. It becomes the pure focus of your day, because IV use is short acting, and so therefore you have that urge to use more and more throughout the day. And so by year 6 of my 10-year opiate use, I was using IV anywhere from 4 to 6 times a day. Oxycodone, Dilaudid, Dopana, those were the things that I typically used. At that point, my it went off the rails. I was trying to hold everything together, and it was just paper clips and bubble gum. I was open about it and honest with my wife. She tried to support me the best we could. She could. However, we had a growing family, and I was head over heels for both my wife and my only daughter at the time. I wasn't involved in a party lifestyle. I wasn't involved in the drug game, so to speak. I went and got my opiates and I went home. However, I started using at work, and I started, really becoming erratic in my behaviors and my patterns and everything. And so when it came to a head, I ended up losing a job. You cannot use opiates IV that many times a day as a nurse. And I will leave that up to your imagination as to why a registered nurse should not be around opiates. Or yeah, and so I entered treatment at that time. I did a 30-day inpatient down at Compass, or excuse me, at the time it was Pathways down in Warrensburg. It was a great experience. However, I did not have the right mindset, and I did not have the right open heart to really understand what my life had become and what I was there to do. I was looking to just stay there for 30 days so I could be away from the opiates so that they just weren't accessible. I didn't do any internal work, and I didn't soak up what was being said in that way. I did grab some nuggets of information and thoughts that, might give me a new perspective. However, the first day upon leaving treatment, the very first day, the first stop I made after my wife picked me up was to get a Suboxone. I had been having really bad cravings. I was coming back into the city after being down in Warrensburg, being completely removed from everybody, and I was extremely nervous about these cravings and triggers. I unfortunately had memorized all of my dealer's phone numbers. I didn't need a contact list. I didn't need it. I just needed a phone. And so, you know, I had fooled myself into thinking that if I just used Suboxone, that would be okay. That is not to throw any shade at Suboxone. I think it is saving lives at an incredible rate, helping to save lives at an incredible rate. Um, and so, that was really the chink in my armor, was that I had already 6 hours out of being out of treatment, pursued something for an effect. And I had justified that, like I said, because it was Suboxone. And I thought that it was different than everything else, and it is in a treatment regard, but in how I used things, how my tendencies were to use opiates, it was absolutely not for treatment. And so, I had kind of opened that door back up, and now I did work to stay opiate free for quite some time. Around 6 months. I worked a part-time job, kind of tried to, keep my I guess stress level low so that I could rebuild that mind, body, and spirit. Well, you know, my first test, honestly, was coming back into nursing. I decided to manage home health care, and I was um, approached by somebody my first week of work asking me if I wanted to trade something for a bottle of liquid morphine. I had not planned this and seek it out. And it's looking back, it's just insane to me how fast I said yes to that. And so that bottle of morphine led to what eventually would become the undoing of me, to be frank. I used that bottle of morphine, and then I picked up exactly where I left off before. I got a hold of all my dealers. I, made as many connections as I could, and I went ballistic with it. I won't dig too deep into the family aspect right now because I will get long-winded. You know, I'm sure everybody's sitting here and wondering, like, how did this man with, a wife, which by the way was my high school sweetheart. I met her in seventh grade. Never been with another woman. Never dated anybody else. Anything of that nature. She's, love of my life and the strongest. She's the best. She's the best person I know. And so, anyways, her, a beautiful daughter, a home, a good career, everything anybody could want. But, underneath all that, like I said, I was going off the rails again with the opiates. Well, financially, I thought that I had to continue providing. I didn't go back to treatment. I didn't do any of the things that I knew I should have. I just thought that I could beat it again. And so that was the process for the next probably 2 years was, you know, I would use as much as I could for X number of days, then decide I was like, okay, either because finances or because of a mindset, some epiphany that I had to, I had to stop. And so I made 3 weeks of use, 1 week of withdrawals, 3 weeks of use, 1 week of withdrawals, a part of my life. And you can understand how, impactful that could be in all regards of my life. My wife got 3 good weeks a month out of me. And so, I continued on with that. Well, in December of 2015, in 1 week, and I had, by the way, leading up to this week in December of 2015, I had been using an extraordinary amount. I had absolutely become a monster. I don't know what else to say about it other than that. But in 1 week, everything went away. I lost all my connections. I lost all my dealers in that period of time, and I ended up going into severe withdrawals. I was trying to establish a recovery. I had started going to NA periodically, and so the beginning of that week, the first 3 days of withdrawals, I had nothing. I didn't, like I said, have access to anything. And I decided that I wasn't going to go try to go on Suboxone or anything like that. I was just going to white knuckle it. I didn't sleep for about 3 days. And so waking up on that fourth day, I hung out with my daughter Willow all day long. We did as much as I could in the state I was. But I was sober and I was hanging out with her, and it was pure and it was clear. And that evening, I decided to go to an NA meeting. I was living up in Cameron, and I decided to hit an NA meeting down in Kansas City. I told my wife that after the NA meeting, I was going to go visit my mom and possibly stay there because I had to work early the next day. So I go to the NA meeting, and then I go back to my mother's house afterwards. And I won't get too much into my mom, but my mom, substance use and domestic violence was a big part of my childhood, and my adolescent years. My mom was the first person I used multiple things with, and so going to her house, she had understood where I was with the opiates. She knew the level of the problem that I had, and so of course, she wasn't going to offer me opiates or anything like that. However, I explained to her that I hadn't slept and how bad the withdrawals were. So she gave me a Xanax, and I took that one Xanax, and I didn't take Xanax, by the way. That wasn't something that it just never settled well with me. And so I thought I was going to go to sleep. Well, I didn't. 2 hours later, I got another Xanax to try to just knock myself out. I was going to say, I'll call in the morning if I have to. I just have to get some sleep. So at 1 in the morning, I took my third Xanax, and I did not sleep. However, that Xanax and my mindset and the withdrawals and just the desperation, and I'd become a shell of a man at that point, and I have no issue admitting that. I was ungrateful. I was all of the things. I was all of the things I'd hoped I'd never become in my opiate use. And so sitting up that evening, I thought about before I left the house. Before I left the house that night, like I said, I hung out with my daughter Willow all morning. Or all day long. She was 4 years old. And so, she didn't want me to leave. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking how sad she was because she was crying, following me around everywhere, begging me not to go, hanging on to me. She hid my clothes, and even, walking down the stairs to leave the house, she followed me, and um, you know, just she was very upset, and she'd never been like that, and so. I'll tell you why I was thinking about that at 2 o'clock in the morning, because I was trying to talk myself out of doing something very, very, very ignorant. I was thinking about going to take medications from a pharmacy. Um, that's where I was mentally. I can't tell you how out there I was. It's like I had no control, but I was trying to refocus. I was trying to bring myself out of what I knew my addict behavior could lead to. I was capable of anything, I had done just about whatever I could to keep my addiction going. Now, I didn't, no violence involved in that, but I did lie and steal and pawn and all those things. But at that point, I thought I had to have it. So I was thinking about my daughter, and my mind changed. I was like, no, I'm not going to go do anything. I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna get through this. Well, um, at, at 5 in the morning, I decided to get up and leave to go to work. I had a 6 a.m. start, and on my way there, I decided that I was going to do it, and I don't know why. All of the thoughts of my baby girl being so devastated that I was leaving had left my mind. I should have seen it as an omen, and I did not. And so as I'm going to work, I stopped at the first pharmacy that, well, I didn't stop at the first pharmacy I saw. I stopped at a pharmacy that I knew was going to have very few staff at and all of those things. So it was premeditated in that regard. But past that, I didn't plan it at all. And you will see, that I definitely was a very, very bad robber. So I go in there with khakis on, in all my dress clothes. I used a floral shawl that my wife had in the vehicle to pull up out of my jacket to cover my face once I got back to the pharmacy. I walked back there, and the whole time something in me is screaming, no, 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 turn around, turn around, turn around. But I was just on autopilot. I don't know how else to explain that. And so I ended up, walking up to the register. I didn't point a gun at anybody. I didn't have a gun in that regard. But I alluded to the fact that I might, and demanded that they give me all of their opiate medications. You know, what ensued after that was I ended up getting them, and I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. I won't tell you the whole experience of being in there, but I can tell you that um, I could not believe how the autopilot kept going, because I was telling myself, I am ruining this lady's career. She might have kids. All these things were going through my mind, but I was still going through the actions of getting the opiates. I ended up jumping the counter to open up the plexiglass thing and just shovel them all into 2 bags that I had brought with me. Jump back over the counter, and I run to the front. Well, I get to the front, and I could see out the doors, and I was like, I'm almost there. But to my horror, out the doors, I could see the back of a Clay County Sheriff's Department vehicle, and I knew it was done. I didn't try to do anything else. I didn't try to run. I didn't try to do any of that. I knew that I was had. And so I dropped everything. And, some other things happened, but like I said, I'm going to try not to be too long-winded. But the one thing I do want to share is this. After 10 years of living in that, of losing myself in every way that I could ever imagine, slowly losing it is so hard because you watch it slip through your fingers. So first officer enters, and they immediately get on top of me and pat me and all those things to make sure I didn't have a weapon. And I'm screaming and crying, hysterical. I am saying, I screaming that I have a daughter. I have a daughter. I have a daughter. Please, let me. I wasn't asking to be let go because I knew that wasn't a thing. I don't know why, to be honest with you. I don't know why I was screaming that. It was very, very, subconscious, I guess. And in the middle of all that, the officer that had gotten on top of me to put my arms behind my back, they rolled me over. He got on top of me and they were doing something, I don't know, but he stopped me from screaming and crying because I was crying very, very hysterically. And he looked at me and he said, "You have a daughter?" And I said, "Yes. Her name is Willa." And he looked at me directly in the eyes, and I'll always remember this visually, just exactly how it happened. And he said, "This is the best thing that ever happened to you." Because he knew that whatever had led me to that point had taken everything from me, and it was going to take me away from my daughter. And the damn thing about it is he was right. He was right in every way. I ended up, like I said, doing 18 months of incarceration. I worked on myself. I refound my relationship with God. I did all of the things I could to rebuild my mind, body, and spirit. I made the best amends that I could, from a cell, sending out letters and things of that nature. And I knew that no matter what my path was ahead, and I was, at first, of course, I was very scared that I was going to do a substantial amount of time in prison. And I was told by everybody, jailhouse lawyers telling me that, oh man, the feds are going to come pick you up. You're looking at 10 no matter what, this, that, and the other. My first offer from the prosecution was for 13 years. And and all that, because they'd got me for armed robbery, and I could explain that, but it will be too long-winded. But anyways, you know, I knew that my path ahead was different. I knew that, that person was gone. So I used all those things and I rebuilt my life. I got back out, reestablished relationship with my wife. I was very terrified about what I was going to need to do to rebuild, but I did. And, a couple of years later, back into a home with my wife and my children and everything, and very happy to be there, and still very focused on my recovery. And I was allowed to get back into society in that way. And I was driving down the road with my family one day, and I got a call from, at the time, Tri-County Mental Health, which is now Beacon. And they said, I was um, you know, I was told by a person that was in a treatment role that I had been involved with through C-STAR. I did the C-STAR program. Uh, One of the community support workers submitted my name as somebody that Tri-County might want to contact about building this peer role. And so here I am now. And I wasn't looking for that job. I didn't even know about it. The peer role in Missouri had only been utilized a short time. And so me coming into that was kind of like, ground zero, so to speak, in establishing that for Beacon Mental Health, which is a large provider up here in the Northland. Peer support handles all types of different recovery. It is not just for substance use. It is, there's mental health peer specialists. There is people that experience a number of challenges. There's peer specialists for all of those things. It's a really beautiful role. Peer specialists, what their main focus is to use lived experience and trust and rapport to help others define their own recovery path. And what's unique about peer support is that it focuses on the goals of the peer, and those goals are always self-defined by the peer. And I will refer to any client as a peer, and the reason it's called peer specialist is because it removes that hierarchy. In any other treatment service, there is the client, and then there is the role, the provider role. Peer support, peer specialist is named specifically, like I said, for that, to let that person know from the very onset that you're on a mutual playing field as far as that goes. And I loved that from the get-go. I thought that was such a cool idea because I had sat behind so many treatment desks, or I'd sat in so many treatment facilities at a desk talking to somebody, and not knowing if they actually understood the experiences that I was trying to communicate, the depth that I was trying to get out to them. And I will never ever devalue any type of treatment service, because I think all of it provides that holistic wraparound care that an individual is specifically of substance use recovery does need. But that was the first thing that struck me. And so peer support, it's funny because the best way I could really explain it to you is by telling you what it's not. Peer support is not a counselor. It is not a sponsor. However, and it's not a case manager. However, it does parallel some of those things. It parallels them enough to where peer support is one of the most versatile and capable roles. And that's not only that's not a stretch in any way. It's not only something that can be utilized to help a peer in a facility, but peer specialists, they are allowed and encouraged to go out into the community, to go to the places that our peers are. We're always supposed to meet people in the here and now, or excuse me, meet people where they're at. And that's the beauty of peer support. That's where it starts. And so it allows peer specialists to not only get their peer involved in a recovery community, but be out there with them and provide that. Well, you're never going to have that other kind of relationship with, say, for instance, your nurse at your treatment facility, or the medication provider. They can't go out to community like that. I think that peer support is going to continue to grow in that way. Like I said, now I'm the lead peer. I don't say that very often because I'm not big on, you know, uh, Yeah, I'm not big on that. I'm just a dude in recovery at the end of the day. That's it. But I think that, we lost the war on drugs. I mean, I'm sure we all know we did. And so we have to do something different. We have to understand what things actually look like, and how we can come together to solve this. Well, I don't know if solve is ever going to happen, but to be there for these people that deserve it just as much as anybody else. I've got to have those experiences, and through doing that, I collaborated with several facilities in the area. I do a few different things that allow me to stay in touch with the recovery community, both in a treatment way. But I also, just 2 weeks ago, I was going into local homeless camp, and or unhoused camp, I apologize, and practicing harm reduction. And I don't know if everybody's familiar with harm reduction. I really hope so. I'm also a harm reduction specialist, by the way. Harm reduction, the best way I can put it is this: it is unconditional positive regard. And that means regardless of people's past choices, regardless of people's even current choices and the way they choose to live their lifestyle, you look at that person with compassion. You look at that person as somebody that deserves to be loved. And I get to do that in peer support. Peer support allows for that. It allows the love to come through. It's of course a different kind of love, but anyways, you go to this, local camp, and we gave a place for them to dispose of any of their syringes. We gave them all the resources to help with that. We provided Narcan. We provided some safe use items, and so it was amazing. And a lot of people might be somewhat apprehensive or even fearful to go into a camp like that. I can't even explain to you how thankful people are for looking past the stigma of all of it, because of course in these camps there is every type of use, every type of fringe to everybody else lifestyle, all of that, but these are still human beings, and some of them are, they're they 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 haven't been treated like a human being in a while, and you could see it in their eyes that for somebody to come out to where nobody else will, and show that type of love and there-ness, that letting them know somebody's there. Man, it just it's incredible. And it's incredible how that builds an amazing foundation for a treatment relationship too, because peer specialists are obviously a part of a treatment team. And so for you to be able to establish that rapport, establish that trust with somebody, it assists the entire treatment team, because if there's that trust there, then that person is much more likely to engage in other services. That person is much more likely to believe in the fact that change can happen, because there is somebody in front of them that has been incarcerated, that has, has practiced prostitution, things of that nature, all of the things that can come along with a severe use. Um, and then there's that hope. There is hope right in front of them. And so, it's just a beautiful role. I think that it will continue to grow. I think peer support will be probably one of the more utilized roles coming up, within the next 5 years. And if anybody thank you, by the way, Metro Council, for putting that info up there, because the best place to find any type of information about peer support is the Missouri Credentialing Board, and that you can get to that through www.mcb.org, or just type in Missouri Credentialing Board. It's got an unbelievable amount of amazing info, tools, ways to get connected, different resources to find out about how to implement peer support, how to grow peer support. And then it's got the most info and the most resources are provided to peer support specialists themselves. It's a great place. It's a great hub for us to connect and continue to have conversations about what peer support should look like. I want to leave time for questions. I know I haven't hit a lot on some of the peer support things, but I wanted you to understand that all of those me sharing my experiences, and I've not done it in an abbreviated format like that for quite some time, but you know tying it together is the most important because, like I said, the darkest times of my life ended up becoming some of the most valuable experiences that I could have had to practice a role and to have a career as profound as being a peer specialist. Um, Peer specialists bring everything about them to the table. It's not just about bringing knowledge from a course, or a book or anything. It's about bringing who you are and what you've lived through. And so, I got to do that. And when you give somebody that opportunity, it's amazing to watch what can happen. And so, I I implore anybody to learn more about how peer support can work, with their facility, with their treatment program. But I see you just popped up there. And so I was going to say, I will type all my contact information in the chat, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Aside from what we're going to have here, link anybody up with anything they need. I believe in networking in a recovery community. So we need that, man. We got to have it. So I appreciate it very much. Sorry if it seems a bit discombobulated, but that little beginning kind of threw me off.
It was great, Spencer. Hearing your story is just really amazing. So thank you for sharing with us.
You're
And
welcome. Let's
um,
see a question down there.
yeah,
How
there.
long do
And
you
I
have to
just wanted to make
complete?
sure that you saw there was a really nice comment too earlier.
Oh,
Uh,
well, I haven't read the chat. I'm sorry. If
yeah,
I started reading the chat, I'd be like,
I know you get
oh, I'm
distracted.
sorry. So let me see here.
Here, I'll read it
Okay.
out. Tanya
Yeah,
said,
please. That would be great.
Tanya said, thank you for sharing your recovery testimony. This really let me know how difficult it is for recovery and how a peer specialist would be perfect at supporting an individual versus someone who has never experienced addiction. And then we addressed the question about getting into peer support as a professional and the training programs that are available there. The
Sure.
links are there in the chat for both sides of the state line. Cherie would love to collaborate with you from Rediscover. And then Jean asked,
Absolutely.
how long do you have to be clean before you can be a peer support specialist?
Um, you know, uh, you can actually apply for peer support, in recovery in general, right? And when I say recovery, but we've always said sobriety, right? I say recovery because recovery looks different from everybody for everybody. Abstinence is not always the way if we're going to believe in harm reduction. So I have to add that. However, me personally, a year is preferred, right? Because that foundation is very important, and now you need the experiences of being in recovery to pair with the experiences that you had in use. To me personally, though, I think 2 years is an excellent point, because after that second year, I feel like after seeing hundreds of people, I really noticed that second year tends to be one of the harder years to overcome in recovery. So I think gaining those experiences of overcoming the hardest times when life really starts to kick you in the ass again, is really important.
Um, Sullivan asked if
Oh yeah, I plan to put all that in there here at the end, but if you want to, Sullivan, sure, go for it. You can, I mean, shoot, man, I'm an
you can
open
keep
book, and
talking.
I love talking to people about peer support, about recovery, about all of it. So yeah, I mean, I could put my phone number in the chat as well
Yeah,
if anybody would rather have. I love talking, like I said. If that's okay, by the way, am I allowed to do that?
yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay,
I think it's
cool.
fine. It won't go to people in the recording, but that's okay. They can
Okay.
reach out
So
and we can get you connected if
yeah, I mean, does anybody else have any questions or comments, or anything they'd like to add as a person that works in our recovery community as well? I'd love to hear anything.
while we're waiting to see if anybody else has anything, I'll just throw in too. I appreciated what you said about peer support being available or applicable to, just about anybody. And I was just thinking about how I'm starting to see more and more pop up um, professional roles where we have people with lived experience supporting people going through whatever it is. Um,
Yes.
so it used to be that those were like volunteer roles, but now there's this like increased recognition that this is such a valuable resource for people that are moving through recovery from anything, whether it's mental health, substance use, cancer, um, any other chronic illnesses, that is so essential to their recovery that we need to pay people to be there to do that too.
Hey,
Like that it's a
we can get
profession.
on that. Yeah, exactly. It is a profession. Exactly. I love that. Thank you for pointing that out.
I think that's great. And I love that there's that training capacity too, because I think that there are lots of people who want to be able to help other people who have experiences similar to theirs, but they don't necessarily always feel like they have the skills or the words to say or the actions to do.
Sure.
So
Sure,
having that
absolutely.
training like really helps, I think, those professionals feel more competent in being able to provide that peer
Yeah,
support.
the peer support supervisor training that they have is my man. It is an amazing piece of information or education. And then also, if you can build on that, if you continue to understand how to support peer specialists and how to best like adapt and evolve and let that role grow, because we all have, we might all have the same goal in this, but our treatment facilities, they run differently, and things of that nature. And so that's the beauty of peer support, is that it is extremely adaptable to almost any type of treatment setting. And then to note that professional aspect, peer
Mhm.
supports are professionals within a treatment team. They
Yeah.
are. You know we don't have the collegiate education. I understand that, but some of us do, of course, but the experiences that we have, obviously, and the things that we're recovering from, you can't teach those. You can't read about those. You can't read them and truly understand what it feels like to have your daughter begging you not to leave and to not see her again for 18 months, and then and to not be in so many of the places that we end up finding ourselves. And there's obviously, you can understand how there is a lot of despair and all that, but man, peer support, that's the thing. You turn that into something else, and you turn it into, I don't know. There's a butterfly effect there that I can't quite articulate yet, but I will one day,
Yeah.
I think.
There's one more question here that I want to grab before we
My
close out.
bad.
Lily asked, what do you think case managers could learn from peer support specialists about working with clients? Great question.
I think peer support specialists, they've often lived through a lot of things that other people haven't, that nobody would probably want to, right? And so I think just being extremely compassionate about where a person is, there might be, things that need to be approached before you ask somebody to try to enter recovery or stop using a substance. If individuals don't have a safe place to sleep, if basically, Maslow's hierarchy, right, at that base level is not met, approach them as a person first, always, not a substance use problem to solve. You know what I mean, so to speak. And I can't tell you how many times I would tell my wife, my brother, my mom that, when I left treatment, would come away from a treatment experience, that I wish that they saw the other 90% of me, because even though the opiates had overtaken a vast majority of my life, up here and in here, there was a lot more. And so, take the time to find out what those things are.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we are out of time. Just
Sure.
want to say thank you again, Spencer, for
You're very welcome,
working
y'all.
through the technical difficulties and getting here.
Yeah, that really did kind of throw me off. I apologize. But I very much appreciate the opportunity. And I hope to do something of this nature again. And I hope to hear from anybody that attended. I would love to hear from you. So reach out any way you best see fit.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for attending today. I did put in the chat the link for the certificate and the password that you'll need in order to access that. I can linger here just a moment in case anyone has any difficulty with that. And want to also point out that our next webinar is the fourth Thursday of this month from 12 to 1. Hope you are able to join us for that. I can't now recall what the topic is, but you'll see emails coming out soon with that information. And also this webinar was recorded, so we will have it up on our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks. Give us a little time to process. We are a mostly volunteer group of people coordinating the webinars and the Mental Health KC conference. So thank you all again so much. I will hang out here for just a minute to address any lingering issues, but that concludes our webinar for today.
Hey, thanks everybody for the kind words, man. That means a great deal to me. So I'm much appreciated. All right, everybody have a good day.